Good smell, good vegan jad. And in the news tonight.
Over the last couple of weeks, we have seen an upsurge in conversations around the issue of school violence. Now, this is nothing new. The conversations may be new, but the issue of school violence and gang violence is certainly nothing new to Trinidad and Tobago. Thankfully, a lot of people have been having these conversations within recent time. So this week on Real Life with Nicole, we felt it absolutely necessary to continue having these conversations and to bring it to the fore. With me, I have psychologist Anna Maria Mora, who will explore some of these issues, along with Mr. Ronald Nathan, as we have a conversation with three young people who will share their stories, and then we will speak about it in a more open perspective. This is Real Life with Nicole.
Good smell, good vegan jad. And in the news tonight.
So I have joining me Ms. Anna Maria Mora, psychologist and a member of the Children's Task Force that was recently formed by the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and Mr. Ronald Nathan, a youth development consultant, who will just have a conversation with them as we speak about the issues related to youth violence. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you so
Ronald.
much, Nicole.
So it seems like we're a very angry society. Anna, what is the cause of all of this anger?
Well, I think it has happened over the years. I think it's neglect, because we have had many of these conversations over the years.
Yes.
I can remember when I had just come back from studying in 1989, that the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association had a national consultation on indiscipline and violence in schools, because they found young people with brass knuckles and knives at a school, secondary school sports meeting at Jean Pierre Sports Complex. And we had the conversation. And there were so many recommendations, and over the years we have just seen it mushroom, because those recommendations have been totally, to me, ignored. There might have been little one-off things, but as a policy-making body, the administration who is charged with the responsibility of putting things in place, found it, I guess, I don't know what the word is, but they found it easier to put the money or in other areas. So I think it is serious neglect, because those children who were neglected in 1989 are now the parents of these children who we are seeing what's happening.
Acting out,
Yeah,
yes.
and I mean, we recommended national parenting programs. We recommended so many work in the media. We did try to have something called With Parents in Mind. We had little 5-minute snippets showing parents how to handle, but they were not enough, because we need to have these things constantly in people's vision if they are to change. And I think it is really serious neglect of the recommendations, the systems that we needed to put in place to prevent what is happening today. That's what I think.
Roland.
Yeah. Nicole, I believe that one of the things that we find very easy to do is to react to situations as opposed to be proactive in setting in place within the context of the family and the school and the other institutions we have, programs that run and take youth at heart, as opposed to seeing a problem that arises and then trying to address that. And so many times our policymakers just throw money at a reactive response to an issue until it comes out of the press. And we fail to realize that our young people have inherited from us, the adults, certain situations and systems that don't work. And they are trying to make the best of what they have received. And many times it's inadequate, and so they do act out.
What do you mean by they have inherited certain systems that do not work? What do you mean by that?
All right. If we take, for example, our schooling system, we have spoken many, many times about our system that is a two-tier system, one elitist on one hand, and there are kids who know that if they pass for a particular school, that really means that they are duns, they're no good, they out the limelight, they won't be able to achieve, and so they enter into that school already with a low expectations of themselves, and even many of the teachers are expecting little of them. That is a system that we can correct, but we have not done so. And so those are the systems that I'm talking about, similar to what Anna Maria said about parenting. We recognize that we have some serious parenting issues that has to be dealt with, the way we tackle discipline. We feel it is all right just to beat the living daylights out of a child and somehow believe that that child does not take in that this is an appropriate response to a situation. And really violence is not an appropriate response to any situation.
But it seems, Anna, that violence has become endemic in our society and has almost become a part of who we are. Because I was looking at Facebook sometime. I don't usually look very often at Facebook, but I was just scrolling through my timeline, and on it I saw 3 videos, just one after the next. One with two people, 2 women fighting in a fast food outlet, rolling around on the ground. I mean, I could not believe what I was seeing. And then right after, another one with 2 other women in another fast food chain, and then another one with all these young girls, you know.
Yeah, so, I mean, you are very right. Violence is part of who we are. We have some basic biological instincts, sex and aggression. And if we are not taught to control them, we will stay at that level. We are basically animals, and we have animal nature. Because if we are left as babies, if a wolf could bring us up and we think we are a wolf, we'll bark and grab and what have you. But we have to be taught to control our sexual instincts and our aggressive instincts. And we must recognize that aggression, and we are sexual beings. It's part of us, you are right. And if we do not teach our children, I mean, yes, we have our academic examinations and all these schools who have what they call scholarships, and they're so proud of their scholars. But, I mean, a lot of these scholars are not very nice human beings, because they might be very intellectual and bright, but when it comes to social interaction, which must be learned, and we can teach that. We have to go back to this character-based model and humanistic, because we're in this boat together. And we must teach our young people that. It's not just the competition, and we get so caught up in competition that we lose sight of our common human nature and the fact that we have the potential to help and each other.
Yeah.
We lose sight of that because of our competitive, I mean, we have become so competitive, and people become very aggressive if they're not getting, They don't care who else ain't getting. You know, that kind of thing. So, I mean, we have that in us, but it must be, we have to learn how to control it. We have to be taught how to control it.
Yeah.
And we are not doing that.
Roland, Anna is speaking to the introduction of a level of emotional intelligence into our system, our school system, to support and buffer the academic intelligence. And so this is a conversation and a debate that has been going on for quite some time. What are your thoughts? I know you mentioned that you do work with the GAIAP Youth Violence Prevention Program.
Yes.
Do you do some measure of emotional intelligence and that type of development in your training?
Well, it's interesting that we are involved in a number of different activities. One is Swimming to Success, for example, which is a swimming program that has a life skills component to it. Just over a few months ago, I had a 7-year-old who threatened to cuff me in my face. All right, this is one of our swimmers, and we had to be able to speak to him and tell him that this was inappropriate. And within our discussions on anger management and conflict resolution, which we do with every cycle of swimmers, we find that that is critical to their success. That it's not just enough to know how to be able to do a backstroke in a pool, but you need to be able to handle your aggression, you need to be able to handle difficult situations. And we have to literally do role plays with them in order for them to learn, because all of these things are learnable. And the other thing is that we need to approach our young people with the sense that they are gifted, they are knowledgeable, and what they really need from us is that kind of guidance that allows them to develop appropriate responses to the situations that they face.
I think it has to be non-judgmental, because our young people are judged. If they look a certain way, if you are judged as not being good enough, and approached like that, and they already have internalized that.
Yes.
And if we have that 7-year-old who threatened to cuff you in your face, somebody must cuff him in his face as a way of dealing with some kind of situation that they had to deal with. So he felt that was an appropriate response, and you're an adult. So that they have to be taught. But again, like I tell some of my parents, if you are 40 and the child's father is 40 and the child is, I have about 80-something years to deal with, because it is 40 years of whatever, and everybody is thinking a different way, and then you bring it on this child. So now I have to go back and deal with mother and everybody if we have to help this child to be a different way. We have to stop it here and move into a different direction, so that it really is a task. But it has to be done, and as Ronald said, it can be done, but we have to have the will to do it.
Yes.
We have to have the will to do it. How do we get that will? Where does that will come from?
Well, we have to understand that there are systems we've tried that have failed, and we keep trying them again and again. All right? You can't beat stubbornness out of a child. Okay? And there are people who have this attitude. All right? The issue of just using punishment because we, the adult, want to feel like we have done something, as opposed to what is effective in terms of communicating to this child that, listen, here you are a gifted person, there are opportunities available to you, and you have to be able to manage your feelings, the situations, in order to be able to take advantage of those. What is the best course? And we need to enter into a dialogue with our children as well. I know there are some who feel that that is weak parenting. What you really need to do is to be firm. But, it has not worked like that. And so we have to invest resources and stick with it. This cannot work within a 4-year period or a 2-year period or the running of a 6-month program. Okay? We have to reinforce positive values towards our children and expect great things of them and act like we are expecting great things from them. This is not just a show. And many times we treat our children like it's a show, and after the show finish, we get on with life as is normal. And it doesn't work.
It's not a show. When we come back, we'll have some real-life stories from some persons who were bullied and some persons who did the bullying themselves. Stay tuned.
Good smell, good vegan Jad. And in the news tonight.
So we're going to hear a story being shared with one of my guests who attended what some may call a prestige school in Port of Spain. So he will share his experiences with us.
Oh, well, my name is Ricardo Lopez, and the school I went to, it was not, I wouldn't say at the time that I went to the era, it was not that violent. We didn't have much of that violent like what's going on now. It was more in terms of discrimination, in terms of the levels of society, and as the man was talking about, the elite, and the average person out here, So in terms of violence, if something were to happen, you would find that somebody like, probably somebody of my race or, you know, color or whatever would be treated more harshly than someone of a different race, you know.
Were you treated more harshly?
Yeah, I was treated more harshly at certain periods in time, you know, and to me, that only made me become even more delinquent.
How were you treated harshly?
Well, 6 of us would indulge in an activity that would be wrong. 5 of us would be reprimanded for it. One, we would clearly see that that one was, he was shown the back door to leave. And we, I mean, although we are young and naive, we are also intelligent. And we would see that clear discrimination. So we felt that through that injustice, there was no other way to go other than just be more rebellious, you know. And probably in terms of what's going on now, in this era now, this is a factor that's taking place. You know, people seeing a discrimination, you know, because stereotypes cause much friction in society.
Did you feel that you were stereotyped at that school?
Of course I was stereotyped.
In
that
what way?
school. Well, in terms of just being who I am and my color and how I express myself, you know, because in a prestige school, it influenced much by how you are treated, by who you are, where you come from. You know what I mean? You read your, my name is Ricardo Lopez. I live in Belmont. I live in Mova Laventille, you know. I come from a particular area, or I come from a particular culture, you'll be discriminated against and you'll be treated different, you know. And from my personal experience, although I have turned my life around, you know, I see where a lot of the youths today, the discrimination causes them to be even more unlawful, even more arrogant, even more aggressive and that. And then we have no outlets, as Anna and Ronald was speaking about. We have any outlets whereby youths, like a youth man like me, could come out and express ourselves. Because we are told that we are man, we are supposed to be strong. We cannot show any form of weakness. So we find that many male would suppress the emotions. And suppressing emotion will only be a deterrent in the future. And it will also be, it will cause a great deprivation towards your nurturing as a person also too, you know? So, and then violence in my era in school was, as I said, was limited, but it wasn't as aggressive as it is right now, you know? And probably because, as you say, the children of the 80s who become the parents now, the influence of this was slight upon us. But as years go by, it gets deeper and deeper more into our subconscious, deeper more, you know, into who we are as people. And therefore, you see now how as soon as somebody says something to you, jump up, fight, you know. And, well, as you're speaking about solutions, I think that personally what they want to implement is really what's supposed to be done. And the people who are in charge, you know, of, let's say, government or the social systems or whoever, is supposed to take heed of these people, because it seems like they don't care, because look at what's going on right now. If you see all these things that you talk about Facebook and these incidents are happening, I mean, that is terrible, that is atrocious. So who is just watching upon these things and saying, oh my gosh, it is time for this to stop? Oh my gosh, I know enlightening people who I feel with their ingenuity could bring forth ideas that we could implement that could make this a better story for us now. Because at this point in time, it's not so.
Anna, what are your thoughts?
No, well, I mean, I kind of have known Ricardo's story from when he was in Form 3 at this prestige school. And I know that he was really very angry, actually, Did you drop out?
I didn't drop out physically, but
Okay.
my body was in school, but my mind was on the other side
And
of
you
town.
did not do the exams? No.
Many exams I missed.
Yeah, he didn't.
Probably did
because
about
that
just
was
2 or 3 exams.
his way of handling it. Today, somebody will just fight and beat up. You know, it had the west-east kind of thing. Who from the west, who from the east. You know, that kind of thing. And we still have that, but it's who from north so and south so. You know, so that he kind of internalized it and really got into himself. And as he grew older, he did get help to come out to be, you know, not that aggressive young man that would fight, and because they're now living in the East, and he's doing pretty well, but has really used, because he's a very intelligent young man, and he went into that school very, very intelligent, but they never recognized that. And I think as we were coming down, you were talking about how we only focus on what is lacking in these young people. I think Ronald started that conversation just now. You wanted to say something?
I empathize very much with that kind of situation, because on a number of occasions I have to deal with young people in the bracket of having dropped out or fallout and now trying to come back into some sort of more constructive way of operating and engaging with the society. And one of the things that we discover is that they have an extreme anger that could either affect them in terms of how they internalize it. Okay, so they beat up on themselves, cut themselves, get into certain addictions, which is an anger against self. Okay, or they externalize it against the community and the populace. And really, we have to understand that violence is a preventable disease. Right? We use a public health approach to address situations of malaria and different things, but we don't use the same type of approach when we're dealing with violence. Instead, we just react.
Because
Okay.
it's a mental health issue. It's a mental health issue that
Yeah.
is part of the
I think in the schools, psychology is supposed to be something that's supposed to be very imperative, because we need to be able to recognize, because I will be amongst my peers and we could recognize a certain brother, you know, he had problems at home. He come in and you're seeing a whole digression taking place. But anybody in authority, a teacher, a principal, whoever, nobody cares. So he spent 5 years in school and you just say, well, he delinquent, he don't want to study, you know, but there's some avenue in which he could nurture himself. There's some talent that he has. And somebody needs to take hold of him and realize, well, probably that talent is not in the academical realm. Probably it's another realm, you know. And it's not there in school. Those things are not there in school to recognize this. So plenty of people, but there's a so-called prestige school, or, you know, there are other schools, they just go through the system. And this is part of the aggressive, you know, nature that is occurring right now too, because we're not being identified.
I think you raised two very important points that I'd like for us to explore a little bit. One is that when we look at the issue of violence, it's not necessarily only physical violence. You also have psychological and emotional violence. And two, that it brings us back to the point that our educational system needs to be opened up a little bit more, so that we don't only focus on academia, and we find other ways of identifying alternate intelligences, so that we'll be able to pick up, you know, some kids, because sometimes people who may be identified as miserable or bad or troublesome children may be ADHD. And who are very creative, very talented, very brilliant, and because you didn't identify that it's not miserable or troublesome, but it's in fact this type of learning style, and put them into that type of learning stream, that sometimes or many times they fall at the wayside.
It's also, you see, trauma. Trauma is a very serious issue. We do not know how many of those girls would have witnessed some brother being shot and killed in front of their very eyes. Now, we see it in the newspapers, 2 bodies with blood coming out somewhere, and we are like, appalled. But some of these young people have been there, they've witnessed it, and there's nobody to hold them and help them with that fear and pain, and you know, and it's getting, that is why I said there has been a neglect, because it's over the years that this has been happening.
You know, I think of two children under the age of 10 who were found in school playing games and saying, "That's your brains on the ground," you know, and talking like that. And when I spoke with them, these two children had crossed over a body that was shot just a few days before. And they were now acting out as play this terrible situation. And no one had picked up on, we have to speak to these children, we have to address the counseling that they require. And we just leave them, or they'll get over that, you know, as time passes. And many of the children of people who've been victims of gun violence have not been dealt with in an appropriate way to help to deal with what they've seen, what they've experienced, their loss. And so they're waiting to get back at the society.
Yeah. And one of the symptoms is impulse, loss of impulse control and emotional, you know, control. And you just start to get very agitated. And as Ricardo said, anybody tell you anything, any little thing they say, you jumping on them, because if you perceive it as an attack, you know, you are going to, so that we have it to do.
We need to realize in the society that at 8 o'clock when school starts, 30 children will be in a class. Not everybody is the same. We need to recognize that. Not everybody have the same mindset. It's how those who come from a comfortable home, they were given their little sandwich, the juice, money to spend, and they're comfortable. They will come to school comfortable, open the book. It has some people who come from our children, coming from our work overnight. You understand? It's just to come in the morning, you pass the iron, probably didn't do your work because you're coming early in the morning to copy your work, because you can't really think about sitting down and assessing your schoolwork. You have to take a next man's book and you copy it and you go through a whole pretensive order, you know. And I mean, the students will know it because we will interact, but we're not in charge.
When we come back, we'll have a chat with a young lady who used to be a bully.
Smell good vegan Jad. And in the news tonight.
So we're going to have a conversation with Gabrielle, who, as I mentioned before, was a bully, but she's now a university student. So, Gabrielle, introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Gabrielle Grant, and given what we've been discussing so far, it brings back memories of when I was in primary school, what I experienced. And, you know, when I was in primary school, both my parents were not necessarily there. There was a separation going on. So my mom, she had left, and my dad was trying to be the best single father he could be. And during that period of time, I experienced a lot of anger and frustration.
How old were you?
I was around 5 or 6, you know, first year, second year student. And I tend to take out those angry impulses on my fellow classmates. But not as a bully directly, but sometimes they would provoke me. And also I had younger siblings at school, so I would act out aggressively towards them. So sometimes it could get really bad. You know, fist fights, nail bleeding, nosebleeds and stuff. But I think when I look at the news and I see a lot of what is happening, I think that it begins in the family of origin. A lot of people don't recognize that, but a lot of what is going on in a home affects children a lot. And people don't realize that children that age can be affected by something. like that. So, you know, I had a lot of issues. I think I had indiscipline issues when I was in school. You know, eventually when I entered secondary school, I tend to speak to myself a lot. You know, I do a lot of self-talk and so on, and try to mediate my own self out of this. But we did go through.
But did you find that you took those, aggressive tendencies into secondary school as well?
At first, no.
Uh-huh.
At first, no. My dad used to caution me about fighting in secondary school because I had faced out in primary school. But I think I was managing okay in secondary school unless I was provoked. And when I said provoked, if anybody put their hands on me physically, then I would retaliate. But during that time, I did a lot of counseling. I saw different counselors and psychologists, and they weren't very helpful. Some of them, you know, they even brought their own personal experience into dealing with me, and even my siblings were experiencing counseling as well. And they were trying to impose that upon me. So I didn't necessarily have a voice. And I think it's important that children have a voice. Because we do have opinions. And our opinions do matter because it's our lives that the actions that are being perpetrated, it's affecting us. So I think, you know, parents need to communicate with their children on that mature level.
How are you doing now?
I'm great.
You're at UE. What are you doing at UE?
I'm doing psychology at UE. And I think initially this was not the field that I chose, but I think when I look around that we need people who really are people-oriented in such professions, because when I was in the court system, when there was a custody battle between my dad and my mom, I experienced a lot of things from mediators and people who were supposed to be social workers and seeking my best interest. They weren't seeking my best interest at all, and they actually made things a bit worse. And there were even traumatic incidents within the family court system that we were involved in. You know, where a judge, she came across, she was not the overseer of our matter, and she tried to, you know, belittle my sister in saying that no 13-year-old speaks to her that way, in the sense that my sister didn't want to comply with any of the things that the mediators were trying to impose on us. Or for that matter, all of us, 3 siblings that is, we didn't want to comply. So she intervened in the matter, and she even got a policeman involved. And he tried to be aggressive in the sense that he wanted to unholster his gun for my sister, and she was just 13 years old. And you know, he made the statement, you know, if you're being like that, if you're not complying, I'm going to take you for a ride. And my response to that was, well, if you take her, you have to take all of us. You know, because I don't think children should be forced to do things that they don't want to do. And we should not be at the mercy of other people's preconceived notions. I think when people who go into positions as social workers and counselors and so on, they should have an objective stance to dealing with situations that come up before them.
I'm hearing you going,
You know, I'm hearing the cry for individuality. None of us like to live under the shadow of somebody else. We can never really blossom to be all that we ought to be. If you're judging me based upon my older brother, my older sister, or somebody else's family, you know. So I hear that, and then I also get from Gabrielle the fact that there are folks who come into what is supposed to be the caring professions who are not adequately trained, or who do not be an exemplar of the best practice in our profession. And, you know, I feel very much for her, because they really ought to be the ones to rescue the situation before it gets into a difficult.
And I know in some developed countries have what we call an ombudsman for children.
Yes.
And if you, this kind of case would have gone to that ombudsman.
But weren't we? I remember when I, in a previous incarnation in the Senate, we were debating, was it the Children's Authority bill? I think we were debating, and in one of the clauses, a children's ombudsman was put in, was supposed to have been put in.
Yeah, but that is, it's like a lot of stuff. But we are looking at all those avenues, because when Gabrielle just mentioned her story, the whole thing about having an advocate, as children need advocates. I have had to advocate to the courts by writing letters to and explaining what these, they would need. If I have to, if there's a father who, well, the court system and fathers is another story, who finds that it's unjust how, the children were divided and visiting rights and what have you. And there's a lot of anger because he does not find that the environment in which the mother is living with a new person is suitable for his children. And I mean, nobody goes to visit, to see, but they just assume that it is the mother, which I think is a history thing, because they say you know who your mother is, but you're not sure who your father is. So that is why mothers end up getting all the, with the courts. So
Which is unfortunate.
it is. I'm hoping that we can change that. And we really do need, children really do need advocates. Yes, we have the social workers, the guidance officers, but when I worked at a school as a guidance officer, there was one, Mr. Nathan knows this, one guidance officer for 1,700 children. That is a recipe for when you are there going, because if you want to do your job well, you know what needs to be done. It is a challenge, and this is what is still happening. And we advocate for departments, social services departments in these schools, where you have educational psychologists, counseling psych, social workers, everybody, and the teacher feels supported, because the teachers need support. You can't expect teachers to stop. They are there to make sure that the curriculum is seen. And if there is a referral, and you have the person who will do the home visit, and I think if we are moving towards developed country status, these are the things we need to look at.
Gabriela mentioned another very important point, that is the issue of the family of origin, where when you look, you have to trace, many of these things can be traced back to the home. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay. We have to understand that the home is the incubator within which we shape persons, and therefore in that incubator you need particular conditions. And if the condition is a bad one, if the condition allows for the child to develop low self-esteem because the child comes number 4 in the family rather than number 1, then we are creating a situation in which that child has to try to project themselves in a particular way. And some people will talk about they're looking for attention and so forth, but is this child trying to survive? And how else are they going to survive unless they say, here I am, this is me, okay? And they may speak out of turn, and that's rudeness, shut your mouth, or they may not speak at all, so we're wrong with you, and we constantly reinforcing the negative, as instead of trying to discover who this child is and help to feed their interests and let them develop, because then they begin to, when they get strength in one area, that confidence spills over into other areas, all right?
But I have a different view. I think we're trying to get fathers back in the home, but some of these fathers have 3 and 4 men with children. Which home do we expect them to go into?
True.
You understand? So we have to look at community as family.
Yes.
Because there are women with with children who have to work late, but can't even go across and ask the neighbor, oh gosh, help me. Or the neighbor could offer, look, I'm home at 5. Your child, I notice, has come. Let me, look after him or her until you come home.
Yeah.
That's what we need, because trying to fight to
I am
get
sorry,
progress.
I am leaving my child by no neighbor.
Oh, sorry.
Not at all.
Okay, I know. No, but you need to know the neighbor.
Well,
If you
long
don't
time,
know,
long time. When a community, when it took a community, long time. You could do that.
Nicole,
Me,
these
no,
days, no.
not these days.
You have people, you have your mommy. who
Well,
will
yes,
help.
yes, yes.
You
I
don't
have
have
my-
to deal
my-
with
yes,
that.
yes, that
You
is
don't
true.
have
That
that.
is
You are
very
true.
surrounded
There's
by
the
a support
extended family.
system.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
So-
Let's bring you into the conversation.
Okay.
Tell us a little
Chris.
bit about yourself and your story.
Okay, well, being last but not least,
Your
my
name.
name is Quincy Jackson. I went to school in the East-West Corridor for the past 5 years, and thankfully I got most of my subjects. But I would describe, well, most people would describe me as a person being, like quiet and reserved, and as Nicole correctly stated, fighting doesn't have to be anything. There doesn't have to be physical force used, it could also be verbally or mentally, which was the way in which I was treated, right? Because I remember when I first entered secondary school, right? For the first 2 years, everything was fine, smooth, I had friends, I was doing my work. But then after, I noticed a pattern was starting to develop where actually you either shape up or ship out, right? And it was like, I don't know if they was watching the way how I dressed, the way how I talked, the way how I walked, but there was a certain amount of discrimination that, I couldn't have measured up to their standards, like the tight pants, slim shirts, transport bags. I didn't have all of that. I didn't have the privilege there as yet, and who have boyfriend, who have girlfriend.
Tight pants?
Yeah, pencil pants, as it's commonly called. All right.
What did they
as-
call you? What did they call you?
Well, actually, I was called a variety of names after a while when, they found I wouldn't conform to the standards. I was
Faggot
called,
was one, right?
Yeah, it was faggot, nerd, geek, teacher's pet,
Over and
whatnot,
over.
over and over again, because I did really well in my schoolwork, but, when it came to socializing, I felt kind of isolated, and as you said also, it's not that I'm looking for attention, but, I want somebody to recognize who I am and, appreciate what I could do now. All right. I will not be the one who is physically inclined. I do have my hobbies, I do have my sports, but I'd be more tend to be focused academically. And I was degraded in that sense. But I remember when I was in Form 3, I was not a person to fight, right? I would take matters more internally, I would think about it. If somebody called my name, really, they would describe me as soft. I wouldn't really answer back or do anything to provoke a fight. And, I would take that, I would study it, and, it had me kind of depressed and down for a while, I lost almost all of my self-confidence, and it reached the point where I didn't want to go back to school at all. All right, I didn't want to go back to school at all, and actually, I was contemplating to, but thankfully I did not, to, end it all now.
When you say end it all, what do you mean?
Suicide. All right, suicide. All right, because, it was really starting to draw on me, and actually, my mother took notice of what was going on, and then I think at the ending of Form 3, right, I actually wanted to transfer from the school, right, and I stayed home an entire term, right, actually no work was done or anything like that, and I eventually had to return to the same school because there was no space, right, basically there was no space. And then after I think it was back in 2010, in the summer of 2010, she came across an ad with Anna Maria Mora. She had the Mariama Children's Museum and Teen Turf Camp, which is now called Project Mariama. And, when we went in the first day, as soon as I stepped in the place, or in her office more specifically, I felt a sense of ease, of peace. And, me, her, and Mommy sat down and, we talked. And I recognized that, Anna Maria Mora was a person who wouldn't just hear you, but, she would actually listen to you. It wouldn't go through one ear and come out through the next. And, she was not a person to say, deal with it, get over it, you need to take a hold of yourself or express more confidence, but it's okay, for example, if I want to get $1 million, right? If I want to be a millionaire, you would tell me, go and get $1 million, but how am I doing it? I don't know how to, all right? So saying something and doing something is two entirely different things. And, she sat down and she listened to my plight, my story, And, you know, from the first day, you know, she introduced me to the camp, and, you know, she paid special attention to me amongst other students. And I wouldn't say the change was very subtle and gradual. You know, I didn't just wake up in the morning, bam, confidence. You know, but it took a period from 2010 until now. That's approximately 4 years. You know, of me learning to appreciate myself. You know, recognize my talents, my strengths, my abilities, and learning to work around my weaknesses now. And really, what had helped me too is that, you know, as I went along with the different activities that, you know, she had in the camp as well, and as I met new people of varying backgrounds, ethnicities and whatnot, you know, there were some setbacks, you know, in the earlier stages because I felt, you know, kind of a bit isolated, but then after that feeling quickly faded, you know, and it's like over the years, well, actually I finished school now. It was very subtle and, you know, I actually developed myself, you know, and still I have moments where, you know, I would feel down, you know, I would feel out, but, you know, it's much better than compared to like 3 or 4 years ago, you know, because I'm able to pick myself up, I'm able to reassure myself and say, hey, I'm working forward towards a particular goal in life, you know. You know, my job is to better myself and those around me as well.
What is that goal, Kwesi?
Well, my goal is, well, actually, I want to study medicine, right? And my goal is after I finish my subjects here, well, actually, I finished my subjects. I want to start A-levels in September, go to university and, you know, get into the field itself now. So that's my goal, you know, learn my education and a trade as well, you know, because it's not all about academics, right? You know, it's always good to have a skill or a trade up your sleeve as well. All right, so, you know, I want to work towards that goal. I want to take in medication, you know, get my degree, get a job, you know, where I could actually help other people because I like helping people, all right, because of what I went through myself now. All right, and I look forward towards that goal. And of course, the goal of bettering myself. You know, I look forward towards a golden age where, you know, I'll be totally fearless, where I'll be able to live a powerful and victorious life, you know, without studying what people think or what people say. All right, so.
Well, Kwesi has said it all.
Yeah.
Join us as we come back.
Good smell, good vegan Jad. And in the news tonight.
We're going to get some closing comments from each one of our very intriguing guests this evening on Real Life with Nicole. Start with Ricardo.
Well, basically what I would like to say as this message going out is that we all need to be true to ourselves. And in being true to ourselves, we must know that we are all servants of each other. You're my brother, you're my sister, and we must look out for one another. And when we see someone fall, we should help them rise. And in doing this form of aggression and all these negative virtues that are being displayed right now, they will be diminished, you know. And we'll have a golden age, as my brother speak about, you know.
Gabriela.
Yes, given all that we've discussed and, you know, the reality of the social issues out there, I think we need to stop segregating and looking at male-female issues and see collectively humanity and, you know, bring back love, compassion, selflessness, peace, and, you know, I think we'll have a better society.
Anna.
Oh, I keep thinking that the nuclear family really is in some disarray, and I still think we need to work at that whole community as family, Nicole, okay? You have a community, so we need to get communities back and work with each other, as Ricardo said.
Kwesi.
Well, I think that, you know, we should all work with each other, as Anna Maria said, you know, each one teach one, right? We should stop blaming each other, and we should also learn to accept responsibility for ourselves, our actions, because this hasn't happened here today now. You know, it has been going on slowly over a period of years, you know, and it has really climaxed at this point where, you know, we have the excessive violence and fighting and stuff in school. And I think that's more attention because, as Gabriela said with the judge, you know, more attention going all the way from the student to the judge to the police officer to the council as well, everybody needs to look at themselves and really refine their methods. All right, refine their methods as well.
Okay. It still takes a village to raise a child. And the village is about you and me. And folks who are looking in, they must be asking, what can I do? Yes, you can do something. You can be significant in a child. It took one person taking an interest in Kwesi to assist him to help discover himself and what he could do. You in TV land can also do the same. It takes one person. Go out of your way to show compassion and care and listen to the children.
It's all yours.
Okay, the name of this poem is called Life. Live free. Live free from mental slavery, in boldness and bravery, without pain and misery. Just look into the pages of history. You will see the chronicles of you and me, our heritage and our legacy. Kings of royalty, queens of loyalty, and children of unity. A message I bring from the Almighty. Live free. Live free from the cords of segregation, free from the bands of uneducation. Such a terrible situation, it saddens my meditation. So I share this poetic vibration to the people of my rainbow nation. The highest heights of heaven should be our revelation. Perfect peace, perfect love should be our destination. Yes, there's much darkness and pollution, but I have the righteous solution. Live free. Live free so in turn the children would liberate from the vanity, the hopelessness, and the hate. So their minds would be in a pure and progressive state. Teach them to honor and respect their mate, exalt their own culture and always keep the faith, and live free. The time is at hand, and I need all to understand. We must love our own, properly nurture the seeds we have sown. Mama, come off the phone. Papa, time to come home. Brother, put down the gun. Sister, prostitution is no fairy tale or fun. If we could be treated fairly by the politician, and justice and equality shine brightly as the midday sun, then we could speak honestly about independence and emancipation. Then all the glorious things that are to be could very well be our own reality. I am sure you would all agree, if only we would just live free.